Let's face it, you aren't here for just another gimbal review. We'll get to that. You are here to validate your urge to buy the latest camera gear. This video will justify you spending a couple $100s or send you away empty-handed. This is the Feiyu-Tech SCORP Mini that has just launched on Kickstarter. It has some amazing features and is worth every penny if you actually need it. Compared to something 3 times its price, it does exactly what it needs to do: stabilize footage. And it does a pretty great job at it. So before we go over every single spec of the SCORP Mini, let's talk about whether you actually need this specific gimbal in your kit and whether it's even going to work for you. So let's go through the 5 questions you need to ask yourself to see if this is a good fit for you. 1. What kind of camera do you plan on carrying? You can start with anything from a cell phone all the way up to a full-size mirrorless camera with a relatively small lens. So you can use things like the new iPhone 13 or the S22 Ultra or the next generation coming up on this gimbal and get great stabilized footage. If you have an action camera like a GoPro or an Insta360, you can also use this. So it's pretty versatile. And one of the big advantages to this gimbal is it's small and lightweight, and when you're ready to upgrade to a more expensive camera, you can use the same gimbal you used on your phone for an FX3. Now, yes, you can do that with a bigger, more expensive gimbal, but again, this is just a little over $200. So if you're using smaller devices and you want to upgrade eventually to a small setup with a mirrorless, this gimbal fits pretty well. Now, if you're going to use something like the Blackmagic cinema camera or large lenses, you're going to need something bigger. But the reality is, if you're getting into that kind of budget, you probably have a bigger budget for stabilization anyway. The next question you need to ask yourself: does weight matter? See, when I first started out filming weddings, I went and bought the Ronin M. That thing is insanely heavy and about killed me the first wedding I shot. I didn't need a massive gimbal for that. This gimbal is incredibly light, so you hardly notice it's there. It's not going to wear you out, and it doesn't weigh much more than your average camera rig does anyway. And you still get stabilization without breaking your back. The third thing we want to consider is how often will you actually use it? See, a lot of times we just pick up our camera or our phone and go shoot, and we don't want to take the time to rig up a gimbal. This thing does have locking axes, which does help, but again, sometimes you just want to shoot handheld and you don't want to mess with a gimbal. However, digital stabilization, as good as it is never going to be as good as mechanical stabilization. So the next question is, what are you filming with it? And this will dictate whether you actually use it. If you're shooting real estate, I can tell you, yes, you need a gimbal. You can worry about things like sliders and stuff like that later because they take even more time to set up. Weddings, I also think you'll need a gimbal. Yes, you can shoot handheld, which will allow you to get the more important shots and guarantee that you get them, but there will be times you'll wish you'll be able to stabilize that footage a little better. And again, this is where this gimbal stands out. It's small and it's easy to handle. And at a wedding, you're gonna want something that is pretty compact. You're not gonna wanna carry around a giant Ronin M through a crowd or while people are dancing. You're gonna ruin the photographer's photos with all your crazy camera gear. So you're gonna wanna keep it pretty compact. If you're doing client work, a lot of the time you're just gonna be shooting on a tripod or handheld. You will want a gimbal eventually, but I would worry about things like lenses and lighting first and then work your way into that. The final question you need to ask yourself: is it in your budget? Let me make this very simple. Yes, if you need a gimbal, this is in your budget. It's only a little over $200, and you cannot get a gimbal of this quality for that price. And we're gonna get into why in just a moment, but keep in mind, a lot of gimbals start at $600 or $700 and go up from there. So for a little over $200, this is a great way to get in. It doesn't really even cost more than the average little cell phone gimbal. So now that we've decided whether or not you actually need this, let's talk about what sets it apart. One of my favorite features on this gimbal and what makes it very unique is the hand grip. The hand grip actually has the touchscreen built into it, and it's right in front of you. So you're not looking up under to get to your touchscreen and use controls. It's right out front, and the touchscreen is really intuitive and it works quite well. It also has the joystick up here, your record, start, and stop, which allows you to work with some cameras and Bluetooth. We'll link a device list to show what it currently works with. And again, remember, this is in Kickstarter, so I'm sure the software updates will add more cameras in the coming weeks. It also has the built-in wheel up front, which kind of reminds me a little bit of the way DJI has recently done it. They have it where you can reach it with one hand, so you don't necessarily need to have a second hand reaching the knob. You can change between pan, tilt, roll, and control a focus motor or digital focus. We didn't get the focus motor with this one, but it is an accessory that you can add. Another unique thing about the wheel is it actually has a tactile click to it when you use it to change camera settings. So you can use this to change aperture, ISO, and shutter speed. And when when you do, it clicks between each position. It's really kind of crazy how it works because when you go back to roll or focus, it's very smooth and easy to operate. It has all of your normal modes like pan follow, pan tilt follow, FPV. You can do the roll and portrait mode and all of these standard features that you see in a gimbal today. And from our testing, it handles them all really well, again, for the price point. It also has a lightning mode that is insanely quick that will keep up with any kind of action sports or anything you're doing like that, which is really nice because sometimes you need those quick shots more than you need stabilization and you don't have time to power it down and disconnect it. So let's go over some of the downsides to the SCORP Mini. It has a really unique locking mechanism for the arms that allow you to balance and slide and adjust, and the knob rotates and locks kind of like a lot of tripods do. The only downside to that is if you turn it a little too far and tighten it in the loosen position, you're like trying to decide, does it need loosen more or tighten more? And that can be a little frustrating at first. Once you get used to it, it actually works quite well, but it takes a moment to figure out. It is a unique feature, but not necessarily a good one, especially in the beginning. It's also not as compact when you go to take it with you as some small gimbals because of this attached back arm. Now, having said that, I think it's worth the trade-off because having this back arm is really nice, and having the screen on the back is kind of a game changer when it comes to small gimbals. Again, you're not looking up under things to change settings, which allows you to use the features more often. Another point on this is the handle is made out of kind of a weak feeling plastic. I mean, it seems like it probably is durable, but it's a soft, kind of cheaper plastic. However, this does keep it very lightweight. So you definitely don't want to drop this, but again, it doesn't weigh very much, which is pretty great. The battery life is very impressive. In our testing, we did not ever have the battery go dead. They claim, I think, a little over 9 hours, but in our use, we didn't have the battery go dead at all or even get below like the top 2 bars. Now, granted, we did not film for like 8 hours straight or anything like that. Overall, I would highly recommend the Feiyu-Tech SCORP Mini. We will leave links to the Kickstarter in the description where you can get an exclusive discount right now. And once the Kickstarter is over, they're still going to offer it for less than $300, which is very affordable for all of the features the SCORP Mini has to offer. So we will leave those links below where you can go check it out yourself. But if you find you need a larger gimbal, we did a review of the RS3 here. Warning, it's about 3 times as much money, but that gimbal will carry much heavier rigs if you actually need it. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.